Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would invite any of you that want to take off your jackets or ties, please feel free to do so. It's no problem at all. Welcome to the first council meeting of the municipal year. Could I ask everyone to note the fire safety instructions that on hearing the alarm, you should leave the chamber via the double doors at the back, exit the building through the main entrance and congregate in the car park. Also, please switch off your mobile phones and turn any other electronic devices being used to silent. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is subject to an internet webcast recording where the proceedings are capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the public gallery of the council chamber, it is likely that your image will be captured by the recording cameras and result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should leave the public seating area in the main body of the council chamber and move to the upper public gallery. If members are for any reason not present for the whole debate on an item, you should consider and seek advice as necessary on whether it would be appropriate for you to vote on that item. I would also request that members ensure that they are familiar with the procedural rules which are set out on page 3 of the agenda. Point of order. A member may raise a point of order at any time, which the Mayor will hear immediately. It must relate to an alleged breach of these procedural rules or the law, and the member must identify the relevant rule or law and how it has been breached. The Mayor's ruling is final. Personal explanation. A member may make a personal explanation at any time to clarify a material part of an earlier speech that may have been misunderstood, either during or outside the meeting. The Mayor's ruling on admissibility is final. Point of information or clarification. A point of information or clarification must relate to the matter under debate. A member must first obtain the Mayor's permission and explain the information they wish to provide and its relevance to the debate. If permitted, the information must be provided briefly. Such points should only be used in exceptional circumstances and not to interrupt speakers or make a further speech. The Mayor's ruling on admissibility is final. That a proposer of a motion may speak for 5 minutes to introduce the item. The seconder may speak for 3 minutes, which may be reserved, and other speakers for 3 minutes only. The proposer has a further 5 minutes to finally sum up before the vote. Could I ask members to refer to a page number and allow time for us to find it before speaking? I would also like to remind members of the Code of Conduct that can be found in Part 5 of the Constitution. Also, the protocol on member-staff relations at Part 5.4. Please can members ensure they conduct themselves in line with the principles outlined. Finally, please remain seated while speaking if it will cause you difficulty to stand. Item 1, apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from Councillors Chinnery, Gordon, Patel, Sankey and Mayo. Are there any others? Item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations to be made? Item 3, Mayor's announcements. It has now been almost 2 months since I was formally elected as Mayor for this municipal year, and I've hobbled to my engagements in and around the borough. I've been honoured to attend a number of events during my time as Mayor, including the King's Garden Party at Buckingham Palace, the Brentwood Art Trail, attending the Strawberry Fair event, arriving by horse and carriage, visiting St Peter's School, Brentwood School and St Martin's School, to name but a few. I very much enjoyed attending the Try a Try event at the Brentwood Centre and handed out some well-deserved medals, as well as spending a lovely afternoon at the annual multi-faith cricket match. On the 22nd of June, I was honoured to raise the flag ahead of Armed Forces Day, remembering and honouring all those who have and do serve our country. There was also a short service outside the Baytree Centre on the following Sunday. We also welcome guests from Montbazon for our annual town twinning visit. Looking forward, we are welcoming guests from Rolt in Germany in August and taking part in some of the exciting planned events. I'm very pleased to help keep these traditions alive. I look forward to welcoming you to my civic service on the 22nd of July at Brentwood Cathedral, and I hope as many of you as possible will attend. I also look forward to attending many more events in the coming months, presenting further opportunities to represent Brentwood and to meet the people and visit organisations of our incredible borough. We are also currently organising events to raise money for my chosen charities, and your support would be greatly appreciated. Yeah. Also, could I just go to Councillor Gascoigne, please, and ask him to speak?
Thank you very much. I think what happened in the last week, reference Anne Widdecombe, has been a heartbreaking tragedy. And wherever you fall in the room, this was an attack on democracy, freedom of speech. And I'm sure you'll agree with me, this has been an absolute shockwave to everybody. And just a quick mention of Anne Widdecombe. She was someone who was well known for speaking the truth. In my opinion, an icon, particularly when it comes to free speech. And she will be dearly missed, to say the least. Just to give you an example of the kind of lady she was, a direct quote from her: "No one has the right to go through this life expecting never to be hurt, never to be insulted, never to be offended." She always fought so that everybody could speak freely, and that was tragically robbed from us. So what I'd like, Madam Mayor, is to have a 1-minute silence to remember Anne Widdecombe. Thank you.
Agreement? Everybody in agreement? Agreed. All be stand, please. Thank you, members.
May I just say that I thank Councillor Gascoigne for that. It was something I was going to ask anyway. This chamber has done this in the past, sadly too often, for David Amos a couple of years ago, and before that Joe Cox. It is something that politicians in this country, not just politicians, other people that are known in the media and in the papers, sadly we now have to take extra measures of safety for our own sake, for everyone. And there's things that we take for granted that we now sadly can't. It is an attack on our democracy, but it's beholden on all of us to make sure we look after each other. So, sadly, that had to be said. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. Right. So move to item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. Is it your wish that I sign as a correct record the minutes of the council meeting held on 23rd of March 2026, which begin on page 3 of the agenda? Supplement 2. Councillor Russell. Councillor Russell.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I just want to draw your attention to an error on page 7. Although you could mistake both myself and Councillor Quirk as being shy and sensitive souls, it was actually Councillor Quirk that moved that motion and not I. Page 7, halfway out.
Item 5, minutes of annual council meeting. Is it your wish that I sign as a correct record the minutes of the annual council meeting held on the 20th of May 2026, which begins on page 11 of the agenda?
Madam Mayor, before we go to the vote, I would like to it minuted that I will be abstaining on the agreement of those minutes. Thank you.
Everybody else, is it agreed? Thank you. Item 6, minutes of the extraordinary council meeting. Is it your wish that I sign as a correct record the minutes of the council meeting held on the 27th of May 2026, which begins on page 17 of the agenda? Item 7, public questions. 2 questions from the public have been received. Is Mr. Lee here this evening to come up and read his question? No. In line with the Constitution, if the person asking a public question is not present to ask the question when the item is called, the question shall be deleted from the list of questions to be asked. Don't need that, no. Right. Item 8, memorials and petitions. Are there any memorials or petitions to present this evening?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I have a petition. Sorry. I have a petition I'd like to give you from the residents of West Hornsey, some of which are seen behind me. Thank you.
Item 9, committee chairs' reports and members' questions. The period allowed for written and oral questions is 60 minutes. No written questions have been received. Chair's questions. Each member has the opportunity to ask each chair one question relating to their committee and one question to the leader of the council. Are there any oral questions to chairs this evening? Councillor Barber.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, could I just ask that the questions and the subsequent answers are recorded verbatim in the minutes, please? Thank you.
Councillor Back. Back. Sorry.
Councillor Batch.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question for the chair of the Clean and Green Committee with regards to the bin collections. With Brentwood having the lowest rates of recycling, I understand in the area, I understand that the administration is relying on a bailout from Essex County Council, the reform-led Essex County Council. I have it on good authority from someone senior in Essex County Council that bailout won't happen. So what I want to ask is, can the chair of the committee assure members and residents that weekly bin collections are safe within the borough, please?
You're quite right. We have requested formal confirmation from Essex County Council of their previous informal offer to fund the purchase of 35,000 wheel bins, which would be a key part of any change. That's what we did in the pilot in Ingatestone, which, as members know, was very successful. It raised recycling rates from 34% to 46%. So we know what good looks like, we know what works, but we know there's a big cost associated if we were to make that change across the whole borough. Of course, there's a stage before we would get to that, which is consultation. We shouldn't overlook that, and it's been disappointing that the opposition have voted against consultation at 2 successive Clean and Green Committee meetings. Essex County Council are the waste disposal authority, and so all our residual waste, which they consider to be far, far too much, goes to them to dispose, and they have to pay for that disposal. So one of the reasons why Essex County Council have up until now been very keen to encourage us to go down this route is because it potentially saves them a considerable sum of money. And that is where the £800,000 that would be needed to fund the capital cost of this change would come from. We have formally written, as of today, to request written confirmation that the previous informal offer made by Essex County Council officers will be honoured, and we look forward to receiving a reply to that.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to the Chair of Planning. When considering planning applications, what does the Council value more, food security or energy security? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. The answer to that question is that there could be no overall answer to that question because every planning application has to be looked at on its own merits. I'm sure the councillor is aware that we have a solar farm application at the very next planning meeting, and it would be impossible for me to say anything at this point in terms of my views on that application. But as we say in the preamble to planning meetings, each case is looked at on its merits. There will be cases where the merits might lie on one side, and there'd be cases where the merits would lie on the other side, and we would look at each case as it comes.
Thank you. Councillor Quirk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not so much a question, it's actually a bit of a point of information, but I guess I can turn it into a question if that helps. Just in relation to the question that Councillor Baksh has asked with regard to the appalling recycling rates that relate to the Liberal Democrat Labour run council here. Those recycling rates have dropped from nearly 50% to 35% over the last 10 years. I checked with Essex County Council officers in my capacity as Deputy Leader of Essex County Council yesterday as to whether there had been any indication or written request from this council to Essex County Council for, by way of the begging bowl that includes the £800,000. And as of yesterday, it hadn't been submitted. But I understand from Councillor Wadsworth just now that he has only just submitted that request to Essex County Council. I have to tell you, as Deputy Leader of Essex County Council, that application, that request will be refused. And the reason it will be refused is because no other council in Essex has had to come to Essex County Council with its cap in hand to prop up failing recycling rates. So if other districts in Essex can do a good job of recycling without coming with their begging bowl to Essex County Council for more taxpayers' money, if others can do that, Brentwood needs to start being a bit more efficient.
Councillor Kendall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the Clean and Green Committee the other week, and at the Clean and Green Committee, members agreed the environment strategy 2026, 2028. If you're not on that committee, I suggest you have a look through it. It's an excellent document. Please could the Chair of Clean and Green confirm that the environment strategy that was adopted that evening makes it very clear to Brentwood residents that we will not be following the line of Essex County Council and scrapping our net zero policies. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Kendall. Yeah, I'm delighted to confirm that we will retain our commitment. This commitment was made 3 years ago when we declared the climate emergency and we brought down the target date for the council to achieve net zero carbon emissions from 2040 to 2030. And that was supported by many members on the other side of the chamber. And we were very grateful for that. We have made fantastic progress. We are 79% of the way to achieving that target. So when people say you cannot achieve net zero, they are wrong. We're manifestly proving that they are wrong. And so within that, I want to give credit to the previous administration because actually they started the progress towards that by the work they did in refurbishing the town hall, which reduced the town hall's carbon footprint considerably. But of course, the biggest contributor has been the switch to HVO, to green diesel, which has made a massive contribution to reducing our carbon footprint. More than that, and people have to understand that in this pursuit of net zero, it is not just about carbon, that there are considerable co-benefits. And two of the most obvious when it comes to our use of green diesel, which I'm glad to say Chelmsford City Council has now followed. We were the pathfinders in Essex and the east of England, and it's glad to see other local authorities recognise the wisdom of what we've done. But the two principal co-benefits are it's taken us out of the volatility of the fossil fuel market. Yes, green diesel costs a little bit more than traditional diesel in the normal, it's a little bit more, and it's never as much as we budgeted. And it's within the cushion we have anyway to deal with fuel price volatility. But there have been occasions in the last few months where it's flipped over. But we've escaped that volatility. Our prices are predictable. But even more important than that, the emissions from our vehicles have been greatly reduced, particularly nitrous oxide, which is the most harmful pollutant to people who suffer respiratory problems. We have reduced that by 25%. And if you consider that the most polluting vehicles in the borough were the refuse vehicles going down residential streets, 40,000 people a year in this country die prematurely from the effects of pollution. We are saving lives. We have made the lives of Brentwood citizens healthier as a result of our commitment to achieving net zero. What is not to like about that?
Thank you, Councillor Walsford. Councillor Bash?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a point of information just regards to Councillor Minot's response. Although we do have to take planning applications on their individual merit, we do have a local development plan, so we can review that at any point. So the Chair is welcome to take on those points without hiding behind the fact that we have to take the individual merits.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gascoigne.
Thank you very much. So my question is to the Chair of Clean and Green. My question is this: in order to pay for net zero, how do you pay for it? Is it by tax rises or cutting services? And also, can you give an exact price of the cost of biodiesel? Thank you.
Yeah, we have provided that figure before and in writing, so I'm quite happy to share it again. In 2024-25, it was an additional £33,000, and last year it was an additional £40,000, and that's around about 10% of our fuel budget. But we're already saving money through our net zero strategy, because one of the other big contributors is the solar panels at the Brentwood Centre. And the saving in energy costs of the Brentwood Centre is already £32,000. So we're already saving more or less the same amount that we were paying out. So yeah, there are, of course, there are going to be capital costs involved in fixing the problems that we have created for the environment. But the savings come very quickly. And what we're doing now is sharing that knowledge and the benefit of that knowledge with residents. Last week we unveiled the solar panels on Seymour Fields Pavilion, which is going to be the start of a community energy company that will mean cleaner and cheaper fuel for the residents of Ingatestone. We are sharing our knowledge with local businesses, several of whom have asked us to come in, give them advice on how they can be cleaner, cheaper in terms of their own energy spend and their own carbon footprint. So the benefits are enormous. So trying to put arbitrary figures on and just pluck a figure out of thin air is frankly meaningless. We have to fix the damage we've done to the environment. There is a cost to that, but very quickly the savings accrue.
Sorry. 68 for 24-25 and a provisional figure up to the date of when I asked the question of 75,000 for 25-76. So 26. So I don't see where the comparisons of the figures come in. You've given two sets of figures now, and you gave two different sets of figures 2 or 3 meetings ago.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My first question, please, is to the Chair of Housing, Health and Communities, Dr. Barrett. Could he given our new enhanced pressure on the Council to address issues of damp and mould, could he give us just a brief update, please, in terms of the number of properties in Brentwood, approximately, which are suffering from damp and mould, which are owned by Brentwood Borough Council? And if he's not able to answer tonight, I would be more than happy for a written reply in due course.
Thank you, Councillor. The answer is no, I can't give you a number. A written question may have been able to help me provide that in advance. I'm happy to provide that in an email, and I'll share it with all members. Thank you.
Yeah, you had a second question.
My second question is to the Chair of Clean and Green. Could Councillor Worsfold please explain to us why the levels of recycling are lower today than when the administration first took over?
I think there are a number of reasons for that. There's been a steady decline over the previous 10 years. It was happening when you were in control of the council. The change to the white and blue bags was not universally popular, and there was a drop-off at that stage, and that unfortunately has continued. It's an interesting question, Councillor Barber, because we do need to understand why the recycling rates have continued to fall, because there isn't an obvious explanation, which is why at Clean and Green we put forward, and it was accepted by the administration, opposed by yourselves, to run a major education campaign over the next few months to encourage people to recycle more, to explain to them the benefits of the weekly food waste collection, to explain to them more clearly what goes into the white and blue bags. And of course we've been able to extend that, because you can now put the drinks cartons, Tetra Packs as some people call them, they can go in the white bag. We need to explain that better, because there are lots of opportunities, I think, to engage people. We need to get into schools to explain to the students all the benefits of recycling, because my guess is, knowing my children from when they were younger, they're very good at putting parents on a guilt trip on such things, and that will help, because there are lots we can do to get our recycling rates up. And as I said at Clean and Green, if we do that, when the day comes when we have to look at the frequency of the residual waste collection, I reckon many people will look at what's in their black bags and say, well, there's hardly anything. What is the fuss about?
Could I request that members not talk whilst other members are speaking? It makes it very hard to concentrate on the speakers, and I think it's a little bit rude. So, thank you.
Madam Mayor, my next question is to the Chair of Finance and Future Development, Councillor Kendall. Given that his committee has just set up, initiated a working group to look at car parking strategy, and given that with the anticipated growth in housing across the borough being forced on us by the government, why are we still looking at disposing of one of our major car parks, Westbury Road, when we may actually need to provide more spaces? And so why do the strategy review after the disposal? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My understanding is there was a full review conducted by the assets team that went through to Asset Committee, looking at Westbury Road in terms of the options, and that included a car park option, included the flat option that we have at the moment, and various other scenarios. I think a residential home for the elderly as well. So all those options were looked at. As I understand it, it went through the Assets Committee. It was agreed at Assets Committee that it was the way forward they wished to go. So with the car parking strategy, we'll be looking at what we know to be the case as of now, not what might have happened some time ago. So that's the situation. Thank you.
And the very final question is to the council leader. Would he join us in extending our thanks and appreciation to the bin men across our borough and all the other grounds staff that have worked tirelessly through this incredibly hot period? Would he like to join us in thanking them across the chamber? Thank you.
Not only will I join with you in thanking them, I've also done that personally from the leader's office. I think they have done a fantastic job. All of our staff in here and outside have worked extremely well on behalf of the residents of Brentwood, and bins everywhere have my gratitude and my support, even those in collectors.
Councillor Wagland.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Mayor. This is in relation to the Chair's report for Assets and Strategy Committee, which is on page 19 of the supplementary Agenda 2. It relates to my continuing concerns about Ingleton Housing in Gatestone, which has stood vacant for several years whilst successive redevelopment proposals have been considered at a pace which represents very little success over that period. During that time, the council has continued to incur costs associated with holding and maintenance of the site, while residents have been deprived of the use of a prominent council-owned asset, very important to the centre of this historic conservation area. As we look at that Chair's report and the year's budget, could the committee chair tell the council what the total cost has been to the authority of the delay, including security, maintenance and lost income, where that's available, and what assumptions have been built into the budget for bringing the site back into productive use, and if permitted in connection with that, what lessons have been learned from this prolonged handling of a council-owned site to no efficient purpose? Thank you, Madam Chair.
I believe that Ingleton House is a HRA asset, so I have no authority or say over it. So I imagine it would be actually a question to the Chair of the House Housing, Health and Community Committee. Thank you, Councillor. As previously, if councillors or members do want exact figures, I'm not going to come up with them on the cuff and get them wrong. I will we'll investigate. Obviously, you had the question, you were reading it out. Email it to me in advance and I'll get you those numbers. I will do that at the end of this meeting. Thank you.
I've been asking for that information for some time and was told by officers that it would be provided some months ago before the latest incarnation of new planning consent. So I have given plenty of opportunity for that. I appreciate not to the committee chair, but I'm calling for the committee chair because I'm not getting anywhere in any other respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question for the Chair of Planning. I assume that he's aware that there is a development going on in Larkins Playing Field for a new pavilion. I understand that this is being funded through grants and a generosity of a developer doing the work for free, I assume. Suddenly, they've, on top of the finances that they've found, has been put on it in terms of net zero, and that has put an extra £40,000 on top of the cost. That is not my actual question. My question is the Chair of Planning aware, or is there any member here aware, that when the original pavilion burnt down, we received a sum of £126,000 from the insurers, which stayed in our earmarked reserves for about 8 years because they thought that it might be clawed back by the insurers who went into liquidation. That sum of money has, I think, gone into the general fund now, but it was always intended to go forward for development of a new pavilion. And as I understand it, this council has not put any money into the development or the costs that are going ahead to produce this pavilion for Larkins Playing Fields.
I will answer that question, although I don't think it's a planning question. I was aware that money, that financial arrangement was in place. I'm also aware that the money that was contributed was shifted into the general fund under the previous Conservative administration. Obviously, there's an issue there, which is an important issue, but it's not part of my job as the Chair of Planning to deal with that. You know, your question may have been to somebody else who actually, that might have actually fallen under their remit, but it's not a planning remit.
The Councillor Parker wouldn't be to any surprise, he's got it wrong again. The actual figure was just less than £100,000 insurance payout on the burning down of the building. The extra money he was saying, the other 26,000, was placed with that money from the Helen Rollinson Foundation, where people were raising money in her name, and it was put with that money in the council's safekeeping. Unfortunately, safekeeping didn't amount to it being kept safe, and that money was lost by the previous administration in the general fund, even though on several occasions I asked for that money to be ring-fenced. I was told it was not necessary, it was in earmarked reserves. We lost it, it's gone.
Thank you.
Information about me, Madam Mayor. Just to note, in the Larkins development, the council is actively contributing to that, subject to proper processes through assets committees. The intention is that we will be paying for the car park extension and enhancements such as the growth bid, which will be in the region of several tens of thousands of pounds. And in turn, because there wasn't council funding to this, a major part of the element, they receive a discounted rent on that site, which discounted from about £20,000 per year savings. So there is actually a significant council contribution going to that site, ignoring the fact the 126, 100,000, whatever that number necessarily is, was spent on other leisure facilities in a prior capital programme. So we have acknowledged the value of that site independent of whether there was an insurance claim, because it is an important community asset, and those across the chamber who supported the planning application, those across the chamber who supported the leisure strategy and various other features have actually helped make that happen. So we have recognised its value and tried to make a contribution to that, and that is of tens of thousands, approaching that level over a period. I hope that's helpful and offers you some faith that this is being recognised by the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. So, Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My questions to the leader. On the fourth paragraph of his leader's report, he mentions the Moto application. And I've met with the No to Moto group, in fact, Councillor Quirk one night, and we addressed the group there. They sadly at the time hadn't been able to speak to the leader about the application. So I was wondering, I'm assuming now that the leader has spoken to No to Moto and has spoken to the developers. But the question is, does he feel that the Greenbelt policy will protect the area from development?
Could you read out what I've written in my report?
Regarding Moto and the proposed M25 service station, advice from officers is that any meetings with them should be in a formal and transparent setting, involving council officers and open to all relevant members, including planning committee and board members. I'd like to have an invite, please. So far, no meetings have been arranged while we established the most appropriate format and agenda.
Go ahead.
Mayor, he hasn't answered the question. Does he feel Greenbelt policy will protect area from development? That is the question that I need an answer to. I take it that his silence would suggest that no, he doesn't feel that Greenbelt policy will protect from development.
I think we can't make an opinion like that at this moment, so... Councillor Hurst.
The Mayor's been dealt with elsewhere, thank you.
Councillor Godfrey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to the Chair of the Clean and Green Committee. I apologise, you're getting a bit of a legwork out this evening. It's regarding the net zero and the move towards energy independence. I understand that who wouldn't want clean energy, of course, especially if it's free. But as we move in from summer into winter and we lose the daylight, the night gets longer, demand for energy goes up, the natural supply goes down as the yield from solar panels drops by up to 90%. What provision is there to match this shortfall in energy supply? Thank you.
I don't think I'm in a position to answer for the country's power network. I think that's a question that's way beyond my pay grade, Madam Mayor.
If I may come back, Madam Mayor?
No, I'm sorry. Okay. Councillor Thompson.
Sorry, this is Green and Clean again. Just following on from my fellow councillors here as well, can we guarantee that members, that we will keep to weekly bin collections? Because I've also had some relevant emails in from the public as well with their concerns on this question. Thank you.
I think I've actually answered that we're not in a position to make any decision to change the frequency of any part of our waste collection regime. We continue to collect residual waste weekly, and very importantly, we continue to collect food waste weekly, and we really do. We're going to focus, and I talked about the education campaign, we're going to focus in the autumn on trying to get more people to use the food waste collection, because that's much more efficient. It goes into an anaerobic converter, so it's converted into energy or to fertiliser. So there's a benefit, a wider benefit from people separating their food waste from other residual waste. So we want to focus on that. That's weekly. The rest of it's staying as it is until we know we can fund the capital costs, which we've heard is going to be unlikely, although Essex County Council will be looking at a big saving in their own waste disposal costs in the face. We're not going to get that money, it sounds like, so we're not going to change anything. I've said that. I don't know how many more times I need to say it.
Councillor Quirk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question to Councillor Minot as Chairman of the Planning Committee. Yesterday, Essex County Council's full council meeting, we moved a motion and resolved an unequivocal statement and agreement to protect Essex's green belt and green spaces. Now, in light of the administration over here in 2023 having granted 3,700 homes in Dunton on the metropolitan green belt, can he now assure me, members and the residents sitting behind me that he will now start acting as a committee chairman, leading his committee to act in the best interest of residents rather than just doing what the government tell him to do?
This administration changed it. Well, it's great to hear a ripple of applause for that. Well, that's absolutely one of the things that we try and... Can you try not to shout out? That's absolutely one of the things that we try and do at the Planning Committee. I would say, unfortunately, as Councillor Quirk, whatever Essex County Council, not long for this earth, as Brentwood is, might want to say or do about the Greenbelt, they can't actually change the situation of government legislation, which is changing the Greenbelt regulations that we have to deal with as a local planning authority, and the Essex, to the extent that they have planning responsibilities, would also have to deal with. You can make these phrases, you can come out with good sounding things which make residents think, oh, you're doing a marvellous job. But unless you're actually capable of doing something which changes the situation, all of that is so much hot air, and we've got, frankly, enough hot air as it is to start off with. You can't make those kinds of claims with any kind of reliability, because you don't have that power. You can't defend the Greenbelt if the ability to defend the Greenbelt is being taken away from you by changes. I've got concerns about some of the changes which are taking place on a national planning level. We don't have the power to do anything different. We, as footballers, who have to operate by the rules of the game, we have to play by the rules of the game. And if you're on the pitch and you try and do something other than playing by the rules of the game, you're going to get yourself into trouble very quickly. It would be lovely to be able to make up your own rules as you go along. And some people seem to think that it's possible to make up your own rules as you go along and claim that that's actually something that you'd be able to achieve in the real world. That's not where we are. We have to play by the rules, however much we may like it or dislike it. I very much think, personally, and this administration thinks, that we would like to defend the Greenbelt in Brentwood. Brentwood's Greenbelt is a significant part of the borough. It's a very important part of the borough, and that is something which we have been trying to do for a long while now. It's also the case that the claim that a very significant number of properties were built in the Greenbelt in Dunton is only partially true because the process of the local plan, the process of putting the local plan policy sites into the local plan means that they are effectively no longer part of the Greenbelt. And it wasn't this administration that put that site into the local plan, it was the previous Conservative administration, of which at one stage in the past the councillor was a member.
Councillor Workland, and then Councillor Kendall, and then this session will be, this part will be finished.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chair. This is my second question, and in the past it's been answered by Councillor Gareth Barrett, but it needs to be answered by someone else this time round. So my question is really sort of flows on from Councillor Quirk's, and is, given that we have housing targets within our existing adopted local plan, and given that we have additional targets imposed by government and there are local planners under review, it is obviously important in the interim to know the precise status we are in relation to the housing targets. And the question I've asked in the past has... Forgive me? Thank you. And the reason that the question that becomes increasingly important for those applications which are going through now is, have we sufficient housing in the planning sense of the word to meet the existing housing targets and to meet the increased target imposed by government? And to make life easier, to say that in the past I have received an answer to that, which has been that yes, we do have that, and we do have it in relation to both the existing and the forward targets, though clearly there are other factors which then may come into play. Thank you. Not sure why that's causing any problems.
Point of order.
Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Wagland. This has moved from my committee to Councillor Kendall's, but I assume you're perfectly referring to the 5-year land supply, but I'll let Councillor Kendall answer that.
We can quite happily give Councillor Wagland a written answer. There will be a statement, an item coming to the Finance Committee in September about the local development plan in terms of where the council's at, what the process is going forward. We'll also be talking to that committee as well about having the working group set up again, as well as the local development plan working group. And we are in a very much a changing situation. I mean, it is very much a moving feast. We've all had detailed census recently about plan changes being made by the government. I expect some more to come out next week when the new Prime Minister is in place. So it is very much a moving target. Our residents obviously are very aware and very concerned about the situation. As a council, I think cross-party, we have tried to defend where we can the Green Belt. The Green Belt is important to all of us, but there is all these statements at the moment about Green Belt and Grey Belt. We need to get clarification about that. Members quite rightly want that. How does that impact us as a community? And there's work being done on that at the moment. So as I say, we will get a written answer to Councillor Wagland to the points she's raised this evening, but an item, as I say, will be coming to September meeting at the Finance and Future Development Committee. Thank you.
Chair, may I just a point of information or clarification, but certainly clarification. Is it?
Yeah, which one?
Forgive me. Is it possible for the answer to be given on the existing situation before all the changes? Because my understanding was we had an appeal decision which had suggested we did have those, and I'm surprised to find that I couldn't get an answer to that bit. Thank you.
We will try and get Councillor Wagland an up-to-date answer on that point. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor Bagg, may I ask if your question is totally separate to anything that's been asked already? Are you asking the same thing or the same person?
Well, we're still within the 60 minutes of the questions, Madam Mayor. So
I asked you a question.
Okay. I do have one new short question, but I do have a related question that I'd like to ask the leader of the Brentwood Alliance, the leader of the council, if I may.
Yes.
What I would like to ask is if we're getting feedback from the committee chairs that the government edicts are creating problems for our local authority and our residents in terms of the targets that are being set, why is the leader so in support of LGR?
Totally different animals, thankfully. LGR is looking to get rid of an outdated, cumbersome, unworkable authority such as Essex County Council. Look to reform Brentwood, what I'm not happy with at all, but as a responsible local elected member, I'm looking to formulate a new authority out of the debris of the disaggravation of Essex County Council and form a new, modern, efficient, usable authority that will drive this town, Chelmsford and Malden, further and better in the future, and be able to turn down things that come up from the government with a more substantial weight of authority behind us, not like we are at the moment. Thank you.
No, I'm sorry, there's no follow-up. There is no follow-up. My decision is final. No follow-up. Councillor Kendall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. During the recent Ingatestone, this is to Councillor Worsfold, during the recent Ingatestone waste...
Already asked.
Okay, all right. Sorry, apparently I've already asked one. Only allowed to one. Thank you.
Councillor Gascoigne.
Can I point of order? My
If-
question, we're still within the hour, and my question was to the Chief Executive, and it's unrelated to anything that we've spoken about so far.
Can't answer the Chief Exec.
Right, Councillor Gascoigne.
Sorry for not saying this one in advance. I would just like to know from the Chair of Planning, if you can tell me, versus the green belt and how many houses are being built on there, how many houses have been built in the town centre? I'd like to have a comparison of effective house building in the town centre compared to the green belt areas, and what's different houses. Obviously, I didn't ask you that in advance, I apologise, but if you have that to hand, brilliant. Otherwise, if I could have that in a written email and all members could see it, I'd appreciate that very much. But that's the question. Thank you.
Yeah, a couple of things there. First of all, you didn't state a period. Secondly, I'm not quite sure from that question whether you're talking about houses that have actually been built versus houses which are in the local plan to be built. In terms of the houses in the local plan, town centre versus greenbelt local plan sites, obviously those numbers are available in the local plan. They're on the website right now, so you can find those numbers handily. The numbers of things that are actually built is a very different thing, because obviously what's built is ultimately the decision of the developer. You often have situations where a developer gets planning approval and then doesn't build the houses. So I'm sure we could provide that figure for you, but it's not the kind of figure I'm going to have on the top of my head without knowing in advance that question is going to be asked. And again, we have had numerous times this evening what could have been written questions, answers that actually could have been available to members right now on the night if they had been written questions. The choice has been made to ask them in a way that means that they don't have the answer at this point.
Councillor Bash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a very quick question to the Chair of the Finance Committee. Can he let us know how many, what resource we have for planning officers within the Brentwood Borough Council? How many planning officers do we have? I'm happy for this to be a written question through the officers, but what I'd like to know is what resource we have, and has it been benchmarked to other areas? Because from what I've been told, that we are quite light on enforcement officers compared to other authorities.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Bash was at the Finance and Future Development Committee. He is a member of that committee, and we did discuss the workforce. We had a big item on the workforce the other night. You were perfectly entitled to ask that question. We had the head of HR there. We could have potentially had an answer. But we will get an answer to Councillor Bash in writing. Obviously, we need to get that information, and we'll make sure he gets an answer. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, there's no other questions. We'll move on. Item 10, appointment of representatives on outside organisations. The report begins on page 27 of the agenda, with the appendix on page 25 of the supplementary agenda too. Mrs Mayhew, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got nothing to add, but happy to take any questions.
No. Councillor Aspinall, will you move
Yes,
the recommendations, please? You have 5 minutes to speak.
More than happy to move that, and will not need 5 minutes. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, I'm happy to second it. Reserve my right to speak.
So we can be open for debate now. Is there any questions? Councillor Bash.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just got it's more a comment to make and a follow-up question with regards to this. in terms of the outside appointments, specifically the police, the police fire and crime panel. Some members might be aware of my letter to the Commissioner, which I did get a response on in relation to the tragic death of Henry Novak. I must say I'm a little disappointed that I didn't receive an acknowledgement or response to the portion in relation to knife crime. But I must commend Councillor Rigby in our cross-party conversation. He did raise that question during the panel, which did get a positive answer from the Commissioner. So I'd like to thank you for that cross-party feedback on that. But I do have a question for Councillor Barrett, who is proposed as replacing Councillor Rigby on that committee. The question I have for Councillor Barrett is he brave enough to challenge the elephant in the room, which is two-tier policing, especially in relation to asking questions of our incoming Chief Constable as part of that panel? Thank you. Point of order, Madam Mayor. It is a debate about the appointments on the outside panel, so I would like to hear from Mr Barrett on his suitability for that position representing us on the outside panel.
First off, it's Councillor or Dr Barrett, show me some respect. Secondly, I will hold Roger to the account that he should be, and the Chief Constable. Two-tier policing is an absolute nonsense phrase made up for political impact, but I will hold Roger to account. Roger and I have a professional relationship. It can be testy at points, but we will make that case. On this panel, I am there to represent Brentwood. The best case of Brentwood is security. I'm also there to acknowledge when successes have happened. Brentwood High Street is actually having crime rates falling at really quite a rapid rate, and in turn the police have responded impressively at key incidents that have happened in Brentwood. So that should be acknowledged. You've had your right to speak. It's not a multiple point conversation. You've spoken, you've had your time. I've had mine. I'd like to move on. Actually, Madam Mayor, could I move this to a vote now, please, because I've got fed up. I hope I have a seconder.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Point of clarification.
This is not the situation that you can do. Thank you. Councillor Hurst.
Since the councillor has addressed me, at the risk of this becoming a pseudo police fire and crime panel, I would point out that I did reply to him in his letter in full, that we did refer to knife crime in that, and very clearly made clear that there is no two-tier policing in Essex. Thank you.
Councillor Hurst.
There's been a motion to go to the vote. Okay, we're going to vote to go to the vote.
Right, so we have a vote to go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Abstain?
That's carried.
I think that's carried. Right, so we now go to the vote on the recommendations on page 28 of the agenda. All those in favour? Against? Abstain? That's carried. Item 11, Annual Report 2025-26. The report begins on page 31 of the agenda. Mr Campbell, is there anything to add?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members. Nothing really to add, just to say this is the yearly performance report based on the corporate plan that was agreed in 2024 that runs through to 2028. Provides performance against that corporate plan and is up for discussion and to be noted. Two things I'd just like to point out, and sadly there are two errors within the report. Page 50 and 51, it refers to domestic violence. In there, it records that there are 3 zeros and a 9, and it records that it is not meeting its target. Clearly, that is an error in the system. It should be reflected as green, and of those 9 that were referenced, they were sorted and dealt with, and it should have been 100%. I apologise for that mistake. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Aspinall, will you move the recommendations, please? You have 5 minutes to speak.
Absolutely, Madam Mayor. I do not take 5 minutes. Thank you. Everything is in the report. I hope members have read it. Any questions they ask, should be answered in that report. Thank you.
We have a seconder.
Yes, I'm happy to second, reserve my right to speak.
So I can open up for debate, limited 3 minutes per speaker. Are there any questions? Councillor Hurst.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So, read the report cover to cover with interest. There are some bits in there which I think are very commendable, particularly on pages 48 and 49, the elements around the Women's Charter and the commitment to Best Bar None, which will be a major contribution to improving safety in the town centre. The rest of the report read a little bit like a paean of praise to the progress, but I think there are some questions that still need to be answered. Page 43 very much flags that the local development plan apparently is on target, but we've just heard from Councillor Kendall that he's not able to answer the questions about the 5-year land supply, and that we're going to be getting an update in September. I think a little bit more what do we call it, candour in the report would be extremely welcome about where there are issues and where things are not being met. Page 50, we have a clear situation where antisocial behaviour cases in the council area are rising. I would just say that's an area which is particularly important to me, and an area where closer collaboration between the council and policing would be extremely welcome. There will be more funding being made available in the near future for joint patrols. Just really would like to call upon the administration to support that with their own enforcement officers by backing that up and making sure that we can deal with that rise in antisocial behaviour across this borough, which is, I think, not necessary and certainly something that we can effectively counter. We know how to do that. It just requires good partnership working. One case to cite would be in my own ward, where there's been a horrible delay in putting in place one CCTV camera on the footbridge across the railway. I really don't understand why it's taken so long, and indeed it's now taken so long that there has been another burglary in the area. So I would call upon the council to make a move there and get that done. And then the last point I just wanted to raise on page 46, you refer to Drake House. That apparently is an area where you feel you're making progress. I would just like to say that is a building where there is clearly a need for action. That is somewhere where the Fire and Rescue Service is in regular contact with the council, I know, and it's certainly on my monitoring list every month for an update on what progress is being made there. Perhaps one of the administration would like to comment on where we are on the progress on Drake House, please.
Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd first like to say that officers in all the departments across the council do a fantastic job, and you know, they can only do what they can with the budgets they get. And of course, the administration sets budgets in those different areas. And when I look through this, you know, I see these lovely photos of councillors standing by nice, clean trucks, and yeah, the community team do a great job of lighting up Brentwood and Strawberry Fair and everything else. But it's a little bit, reads a little bit like the those travel brochures, you know, where you see nice blue lagoons, but in reality, when you get there, you've got a croc-infested swamp. And I raise that because in my portfolio that I've taken over the last few days, it's a portfolio of failure. And when Councillor Gascoigne talks about what the cost is of net zero, this is the cost. This is the cost. This is where you've got, you know, we talk about building new homes, and yet we can't take care of.
Instead of just
May I, Madam Mayor? Given more time than 3 minutes, I would say that what I'm showing is pictures of rack and ruin of your housing stock. We've got high street shops, vacant shops with graffiti all over them. Another one there. We've got our high street pavements that have not been cleaned for months. We've got. Do you remember the time, councillors, when I was the chair of communities and I was pulled across the coals because I had 0.8% of play equipment was not functional. 0.8%. Well, you go up to King George's and you've got 11 pieces of equipment which are out of order. The grass is growing in the cracks. You've got down Highlands Avenue, you've got trees with whips coming up where pedestrians can't get past. In Danes Way, you've got grass that's not been cut, you know. It goes on and on, and this is the thing. It's great news, Mr. Campbell. You know, you've done great work putting something which is decent and readable together, but the stark reality is, you can't go patting yourselves on the back saying, what a great job you've done, when you've got people that can't feed themselves, people that was saying to me, I can't even turn on my electric fan for the fear of the cost of putting an electric fan on. You know, the cost of living crisis, we don't hear about that much these days, do we? But these are all things that are important to people, and you can laugh. The councillor can laugh, the leader can laugh, but this is a reality that residents are living with.
Councillor Aspinall, please. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, Councillor Hurst mentioned the portfolios have changed around them. Brentwood, in its April statement, did have a 5-year land supply that went forward. That is our position, and we believe it's a defendable position. But as you'll be aware, with any 5-year land supply policy, developers will challenge it. And I hope that's some reassurance to Councillor Wagland as well. It is on the website, it is published. But obviously that's a moving feast as it happens in general, because it has to be updated every year. Numbers have to be achieved, but that is there. Secondly, I've never heard a councillor speak down this borough more than I've just heard Councillor Russell speak down this borough, and I genuinely hope he feels ashamed of himself for it. Now, members the other side, from Reform, you're challenging to me at points I kind of wish you weren't in the room, if I'm honest. But at no point have you ever, in my mind, diminished Brentwood. You talk about it's brilliant. Councillor Godfrey, in his speech, talked about how he wanted to make Brentwood as good as it could be. Improve it, professionalism. That statement, I'm sorry, I get there's things that be improved, things to be worked on. Brentwood can always be better. I can't work out how you can talk down at that level about this borough when you're a councillor, when you're meant to love it and believe in it. For me, Councillor Russell, I've named you, so I'm sure you would come back on this. But seriously, we're here to celebrate and make the brilliance of Brentwood and make it better. You never make somewhere better by trying to destroy it and talk about it. And a croc-infested swamp of Brentwood, and that's a phrase that I hope you regret, because frankly, it's ridiculous. And beyond that as well, trying to blame the council for all of the ills of the world is in turn absurd. So I welcome this report in many ways. I think it is positive. I think it's development. Have we achieved all of our goals? No. Do we have a hell of a lot more to do? Yes, we do. Do we need to be ever more ambitious? Certainly we do. Do we need to be challenged? Ever more? Certainly we do. But we should be challenged from the perspective of how do we make Brentwood brilliant, not talking down our borough, because I think that is disgraceful.
Madam Mayor, I'm not talking down this borough. I love this borough. And I love it so much that I wish that I was in that chair so I could deal with these situations. Where the administration would rather spend money on net zero, they could be fixing these problems. They could be fixing these problems. They should be ashamed of themselves, sitting there thinking we're doing a great job when you're not. You need to address these problems.
Councillor Parker. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A little bit disappointed, to be honest with you, that we're in this position tonight because, yes, we do need to lower the tone, especially given what's happened during the week and over the last week. So I'll just say a few things. I'm not going to support the motion because I think I've been quite clear and quite transparent that the strategy of the administration is not one I fully support. There are some things that I like and I respect and I admire. And there are many councillors across the chamber who work collaboratively, Councillor Barrett in particular, to actually deliver the best result for the borough as a whole, putting politics aside, and I welcome that. But there are a few points, and I think I'd be wrong if I didn't focus on some of the areas where we said it could be improved. When we talked about the economic growth strategy of this borough, I individually and other councillors came back with some suggestions as to how it could be enhanced and improved. I don't think any of those suggestions were seriously taken away and incorporated into a revised plan. We talked about things like traffic congestion across the borough. I think it's something that we all suffer from when we're trying to get to the meeting here and we hit some traffic somewhere and we wonder whether we're going to be here on time or not. It happens to all of our residents every single day who drive and those who cycle as well. Mobile reception. Some of our villages have dead spots. If that doesn't hit economic growth, I don't know what does. Obviously, I don't agree with the climate emergency that was declared by the council and the priorities there, so obviously that's not something I could support. I do support the provision of good quality housing, and at Brookfield and at Carriage Court, we were there for the topping out service, and I would thank you for the welcome to be at that service. That was something that's going to be very welcomed by residents living in the Hutton area. So I welcome it, and I hold my nose on some of the climate net zero stuff to do with it, but it's still good quality housing for residents of Brentwood, and we need to see it in that perspective. But there are other things. There are some of the schemes and the projects that have been done by this administration that have distracted attention of officers. I mean, honestly, the wildflower verges, I honestly don't know where it was trolled other than opposite the Brentwood Centre, and it was an unmitigated disaster, truthfully. We need to do less of those kind of schemes unless we're going to follow through them. I asked things about when we're going to have the flower contest across Brentwood, where people would start being encouraged now to replant across the borough. And I was told by the leader that that was something on his radar. It hasn't
30 seconds.
So Brentwood in Bloom, I'm still waiting for. It is an administration that does tend to deliver things, but deliver them very late. And I do think you need to look at doing stuff at pace in the current world. And I do think that's an area for improvement. And I'll finish there, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Minot.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's interesting, some of the points that are being made, things that haven't been done. I think it's always going to be possible to take photographs of things that aren't working or don't look right or shouldn't be the way they are in the real world, not all of which are the responsibility of this council. And we've already heard some, frankly, bizarre criticisms which seem to be directed at this council of things over which this council has absolutely no control this evening. The point I wanted to make about the images that we were shown by the Leader of the Opposition, and actually to a small extent the point that was just made in terms of the council being able to move and get things done more quickly. This council and every administration in the council has to start from where it begins in terms of what it's left with from previous administrations. Brentwood had a certain financial situation when we came in. We've improved Brentwood's financial situation, but part of the financial situation that this administration had to face when it came into office was the long-term consequences of previous decisions made in successive many years, by previous Conservative administrations to freeze council tax. There were opportunities by previous Conservative administrations to spend more money on this borough, to deal with the problems which existed then in this borough, and of which one could have taken photographs at that point in the past. I actually personally remember standing up in a council meeting and complaining to one of the previous leaders of the council, Conservative leader of the council, Councillor Louise McKinley, about the neglect and decay which I could see in Brentwood as a consequence of Conservative administration. I think What the current leader of the opposition is seeing is the consequences of the neglect and decay which has existed for a long time in this borough. There is a limit to what a new administration can do when it comes in after a couple of years. We would dearly love to be able to move faster. We would dearly love to be able to improve things more quickly. We are making the strides that we can. It is frankly unacceptable to try and claim that the reason why this is happening is because this council, this administration is also trying to take steps towards net zero. There are costs to net zero. Councillor Worsfold has already explained. There are also clear benefits to that. We are actually saving money by taking those steps, as well as it costing us money. That is not the reason why a bench is not fixed, or there is chewing gum on the pavement, or any one of the other things which we've just heard being complained about. That is not the reason for those things, and that is also not the reason why this council doesn't have the resources to be able to deal with them. Historic failure to invest in this council is the reason for that.
Councillor Gascoigne.
Thank you very much. There were just a few things I wanted to, well, I suppose clarify on or highlight. I hope we all share the idea that we all want Brentwood to be the best place it can be. And certainly from Reform UK side, that is absolutely what we're committed to. On page 59, I see the percentage service requests that are investigated within the target time of 5 days have consistently failed to hit the target. Now, maybe the target was unrealistic in the first place, but actually service requests is something that I'm hearing also from residents. And I think actually if that could be prioritised to ensure that's improved for future, that's certainly something that Reform UK would want to focus on. That would be grand. And then the other one is on page 70. This is more of a, I suppose, a clarification. But on page 70, forgive me, 72, sorry, I do apologise. On 72, we have here on key deliverables, demonstrate a proactive leadership within the South Essex councils and contribute to the success of the partnership, while also ensuring the voice of Brentwood is heard. But are we not also withdrawing from that later on today? So it seems like a mixed signal. It's just helpful to have clarification on that one, if that's all right. But I'd like to affirm, certainly Reform UK's commitment to ensuring that we have the best Brentwood we can have. And there are some positives in here, and that's great, more of that. But of course, there is still a considerable amount of work still to do. Thank you.
Councillor Quirk.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Page 79, I think I'm reading these numbers right. I've had the rows up that relate to days lost through long-term sickness and days lost through short-term sickness. And maybe the leader of the council can help me with this. The target for days lost for long-term sickness are 129 days. The days lost through short-term sickness target is 176. It looks to me like the actual, when it comes to the number of days that our staff take as long-term sick, we are 200% over target. And I might actually, to see if I can join the dots for Councillor Russell here, maybe the state of Brentwood, the state of Borough from his point of view, is because we have so many people off sick. And also just another point, over the page, it relates to, the report relates to what we think that long-term sickness is attributed to. And the report specifically says anxiety, stress and gastrointestinal conditions. I guess I'd have to ask the question, is that as a consequence of working with this administration?
Councillor Kendall.
Yep, thanks, Madam Mayor. It's interesting, we discussed specifically these points the other night at the Finance and Future Development Committee, and the leader of Reform, Councillor Godfrey, was there with Councillor Bache as well, and we went over these points. I don't know, obviously, I had a chance to speak to Councillor Quirk about them, but obviously we did discuss these in detail. One of the issues we have is Brentwood does take part in the whole benchmarking process in terms of sick days, etc. A number of councils across Essex choose not to do that. Okay, so it doesn't include every authority across Essex, all right? It's limited on that. And we did have some detail, I believe Mr. Stevens perhaps to give some more comment on that, but we did have some detail behind some of these cases about stress and various other issues as well. So I don't want to go into specific detail on that, but we spoke about it, we expressed concerns as a committee cross-party about sickness levels and also about the levels compared to other areas. But I don't understand any other comment, but I know officers are looking at that issue very, very closely.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to address the high-rise buildings question that was mentioned here, just because I think both residents and members might be interested. Obviously, this is a financial year statement, so it's from April to April. There has been progress since then. I checked with the officers today, and we have moved because we've got the approval from the building regulators. We are now in the backlog for approval for the government gateway system. As all councils are now addressing their high-rises, there is a queue. I personally checked with the building regulator and the fire brigade and aware that we are now in this queue, and they've said there's no issues with progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kendall and Councillor Quirk. Obviously, there was an in-depth discussion, and we bring a report to committee around the whole workforce situation, the organisation. I won't go into the level of detail, but happy to share that with the reform group, because obviously there's some personal reasons that some of those figures are like that, but we do benchmark nationally and locally, and we are below in short term. We're not long term, but that's due to some certain difficult circumstances we've had with only a few members of staff, but obviously that long-term sickness figure grows quite quickly when people are going through difficult health issues. But more than happy to pick up those details offline rather than in the chamber.
So, I'll go to the seconder to sum up.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to pick up on points that other people have already responded to, but I think it's worth just commenting on a few of them. I was very upset when Councillor Russell said pavements weren't cleaned, because I see the staff, our staff, diligently sweeping, cleaning the pavements in Shenfield every week, every day. And yeah, I'm full of praise for them. I think the picture he had showed some chewing gum on the pavements. He will know that we've already budgeted to get the gum busters back sometime over the next year to do the wonderful job they did last year in Brentwood High Street and Shenfield. We want to extend that to one or two of the other centres where chewing gum on pavements is a persistent problem. So I just can't accept that. The wildflower planting. I had, this spring, I had spontaneous emails from residents sending me photographs of the wildflowers flourishing in King George's, saying, isn't this a wonderful sight? It works. People appreciate it. It's something our residents want and really do enjoy. We've had it constantly, haven't we, this evening? This constant, everything that's wrong is a trade-off to pursuing net zero. And yet, we heard praise for the housing development. We heard Councillor Russell refer to the cost of living crisis. Those houses are energy efficient. The people that will be living in those properties will have lower energy costs because we have focused on energy efficiency, because we have focused on the low carbon agenda. So these things are all interlinked. And trying to put net zero excuse me, in the naughty corner and saying that's responsible for everything else that's going wrong in the borough is frankly absurd. And if you're going to do yourself any justice, any credit, you just ought to stop and look at the detail, because you're not. And it's really getting rather tedious.
Thank you, Councillor Walsford. We'll now vote on the recommendations on... Yeah, you want to...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, firstly, it wasn't chewing gum. I'll show it, it's vomit and all sorts, okay? And the issue that I'm raising here, it's all very well building new stock, hopefully for the residents of Brentwood, but you're forgetting the residents that are already in properties that are falling down around them. That's why I want to see them prioritise maintaining the stock we've got.
So just a point of information, we obviously have a massive programme of investment in our current stock, something the previous administration had none of. No current stock improvements were in the current administration. They were just doing reactive maintenance. This is something we changed. So, you know, we are walking the walk. And just to say that HRA money is in the HRA account. We can't move money from the general account to the HRA. I don't know how many times I have to say it. Thank you.
So I'll now go to the vote. Vote on the recommendation on page 31 of the agenda. For? Against? Abstain? Motion is carried. Item 12, Mid-Essex Unitary Authority, Joint Committee Proposal. The report begins on page 3 of the agenda supplement. Mr Stevenson, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members, you've got the report, item 12, in front of you, Mid-Essex Unitary Authority. The report proposes setting up helping to start to establish the representation for the Council, for the Joint Committee, ahead of this structural change order being put in place. Happy to take any questions if required.
Councillor Quirk?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Yeah, I guess it is a question to Mr Stevens. Can you, sorry, I was called. Okay, no, fine. Yeah, I'm not moving it.
My mistake, right. So, Councillor Aspinall, can you move the recommendations, please?
Yeah,
Apologies.
I'll move the recommendation. In doing so, say that this is a step that I didn't ever want to take, but we are where we are. We are confirming to the laws, the rules, the strategy that's been changed for local government, and we're looking forward. Yesterday, we had a meeting in Highlands House where I met with several leaders across, Chelmsford and Malden, their deputy leaders, and all those that were invited that turned up. Pity, Essex County Council declined to turn up, but we did have a lot of people there who were interested in what was going on, how we was going to perform it, and what we're doing. We need to progress to get together to formulate an authority that's going to be the shadow authority come next May, that people will be going out in Brentwood to vote for. So we need to understand where we are. We need to understand what is required of us all. We need to talk about that. Yesterday we got the information that the structural change order had been confirmed by the government, that they have awarded us, Essex, ahead of all the other counties that are going through. Draft, yes. They have asked us to check the structural change order that they're showing us to make sure it's the same as what we had sent through to them, the government. It shows their intent. It demonstrates to me that they are serious about this. And I'd rather be on the train, or as Councillor Parker once said, on the bus going somewhere than being left at the station or the bus stop. So this is for the benefit of Brentwood, and if we're at the table, we can argue our case. So the recommendations are there. Myself and my deputy, and I want 2 substitutes. That will be Councillor Gareth Barrett and Councillor Sheila Murphy. Name substitutes to be there in case I or David can't make it. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, I'm happy to second, reserve my right to speak.
Right. So now it's Councillor Quirk.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, a point of information, just based on the accusation that Essex County Council didn't turn up. just so happens that yesterday was a full council meeting at Essex County Council, which lasted for 6 hours. I don't know why quite this particular meeting yesterday was decided to be on one of the only 5 occasions that Essex County Council sits as full council at County Hall. So that was disappointing that myself and Essex County Council colleagues couldn't be there, but obviously we had pressing business in terms of the big budget top tier authority. Perhaps Councillor Aspinall stood a bit sore that he lost to Councillor Hossack, which is why he's just had that slight. The question I have though to Mr Stevenson is, can you confirm what the cost right now in terms of this current year, next year and beyond is insofar as preparing for and executing LGR? What is it going to cost the Brentwood Council taxpayer, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Quirk. So we haven't worked out the final detail, but as you might be aware, in your county council function, there has been a provisional arrangement around proportionate funding for LGR, and the council have got a 1% cost of that overall funding. That 1% equates to just under £1 million, 900,000. That's the estimated at this present time. To date, also, the government are looking to offer £900,000 per unitary area. Only 4.5 million, but to help to start funding it tomorrow, they'll make announcements for the other areas, and there could be additional support funding. We are recording costs, but at the moment, most of the support we're using is funding that's been within budget or current resource. There was within the budget papers this year, obviously, some additional resource for funding. I can ensure that the 151 officer provides a written statement of what we spent to date and what's predicted to be spent moving forward.
Councillor Hurst.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'll be relatively brief. I mean, much as I think that the government's got this the wrong way round, and I'm a fan of devolution, but not of local government reform, it's clearly necessary that we are represented on this joint committee, that it be formed, and that this council be there to defend the interests of the borough of Brentwood and its residents. I would just say, though, as I have said in this chamber before, since the elections, this is a council which is officially in no overall control. This is a really important constitutional issue. This is somewhere where actually it should be across the entire chamber. You have 4 people on your list. There is no one from this side of the chamber. Honestly, I think in this particular case, I would appeal to your better nature. Please make it the leader and the leader of the opposition. Make the 2 substitutes, 1 from each side. I'm going to vote for it anyway. I'm really just trying to appeal to your better nature.
Councillor Minot.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of pieces of information, really. I think actually just picking up on the point that was just made about cross-party membership of that group, it probably has also to be borne in mind that that opposition would be the opposition which took advantage of the fact that the administration for one meeting didn't have enough members in attendance to block the participation of this council in the last stage of the local government reorganisation, which came to us as an agenda item, and thereby basically prevented this council from having a voice at that stage in the proceedings, which is, I mean, just frankly not helpful for the people of this borough and not helpful to this borough.
I think it's proving exactly the point. There was no consultation across chamber on this important constitutional issue ahead of that paper coming forward. That was why it was voted down.
So the point I made was accurate, entirely accurate. That's what happened. The other point I wanted to make was the point that was made about the reasons why Essex County Council completely failed to turn up to the Mid-Essex meeting yesterday. There was a claim, pretty much the same claim, was made at that meeting. And the person who made the claim was sat on the same table as me, and literally 2 people sat on a 7-person table with us both were Essex County councillors, and there were other Essex County councillors in the room, but not administration councillors. It would have been perfectly possible for members of Essex County Council to be present, for officers to be present. It's perfectly possible to have more than one meeting in the same day. We've all been there. that's not an excuse that stands up. And as I say, there were Essex County councillors present at that meeting because they wanted to be present at that meeting. As it happens, the two on my table were Lib Dem Essex County councillors. They were present then. They had to leave early because there was an Essex County Council meeting later on. They managed to do both.
Councillor Bash.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to remind the Chamber that LGR is a structural change to local democracy. It's not just a small thing. This hasn't been voted on by the public. We're here to represent our residents, and this, quite frankly, hasn't been put towards the electorate or our local residents with regards to whether they want to have less representation, which will be a result of LGR. I just want to point out that earlier on when I asked the question about LGR, the leader was very happy about it. He was very enthusiastic about LGR. But the tone has sort of changed as we've moved to this item where it's sort of reluctant to take this on. It's imposed on us. We have to do it. But one of the things that I've noticed throughout this process is that the interaction so far has been delegated to the leader and not debated here in the chamber. And I think Councillor Hurst's comments sort of support that. You've got one side saying that they have been consulted and another side saying that they haven't. So is that how we're going to be represented going forward in a committee where we're not represented, and someone saying that, you know, this is the voice of Brentwood Council? I'll give way, but can I reserve my right to finish?
Been here prior that at every stage that I've had a meeting with my colleagues, I've reported back at full council the results of that meeting. Now it goes into a different gear. Before it was just waiting to see what the government was going to do with the process of deciding how many boroughs districts were allowed to go together to make a unitary. They came out on the side of what I was pushing for and what 9 of my fellow leaders was pushing for. So that has been the way. Now we're going into overdrive and restricted in the time that we've got to make these decisions. I think the Chief Executive said yesterday at the meeting we have 200 days, working days, before this comes in.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I gave way for a point of information, but I think that went on to carry on as clarification, but it ended up being a speech. Could I just say that although, just to finish where I was heading to before, reporting back to this chamber is not scrutiny. Scrutiny is representation of voices that are heard at the early stages, and we haven't had scrutiny on this change, this structural change that's been imposed on us. In the manifesto, there was devolution, but devolution to me is more local representation, more local power, not taking it away. The devolved powers taking those away. We're having less representation now as a result of that. So we have to go back to our residents and explain why is that better for Brentwood? How does that make it better for Brentwood? Now, publicly, we've already, we can only speculate as to why the leader is so adamant that this must, why this must go forward. But perhaps it's something to do with his public post from his group that have shown that he's so eager to lead that unitary. So that short-term dream, which they mention, to lead it, is that at the expense of Essex County Council? Is Brentwood a victim for their vendetta against Essex County Council and the leadership being reformed? We need scrutiny.
Councillor Wrigley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have in my role as the chair of what is now Audit, Governance and Scrutiny, attended a number of local government authority sessions on LGR, including on the SCO. I also attended one that was arranged by Local Government Association East, which was held in Suffolk, which obviously is looking now to challenge LGR. There were a wide variety of councillors present from all parties at that training. The impression I got from it was if you're in the SCO process and you're committed to it, then you are helping yourself in being on that journey. Obviously, at any meeting where a wide number of parties are represented, there are a wide variety of different views, some of which were opposed to it, but getting on with it. And I merely make the point that what I've heard from the various things I've gone is that it's better to be in the process than out of it, but I say no more than that.
Thank you. Councillor Gascoigne.
Thank you very much. Really more for noting, I suppose. Fundamentally, what we're dealing with here is LGR, and LGR, I think, certainly on this side of the chamber, we agree is completely wrong, for lots of different reasons. The one that I'm most surprised that it gets support from the Lib Dems about, though, is the dilution of voting. The whole point of local democracy is to be highly representative of our residents, not take that away, which is exactly what this does. There is a colossal financial cost, and that was the thing that I would take great, this issue that was raised today in this meeting. Oh, it'll be a new, efficient, small authority. It will be bankrupt in 5 to 10 years. It's so unsustainable. And even the government itself and the officers that work within there, the civil service, have looked at this and gone, we can't account for these figures. They don't add up. We can't run these authorities under the current system. Generally, what's been happening across Essex over the last 10, 15 years is we're joining together with either other local borough councillors, or the way Essex is running is we're centralising in order to save money, and that's been one of our best ways of cost savings. This is the extreme and exact opposite of that puts us in a completely different position. Now, I appreciate that obviously it's very exciting for the Liberal Democrats because I think they actually have a chance of winning, which they never do for Essex county-wise. I wonder why that is. But nonetheless, that aside, it's just a terrible idea, which is frankly not particularly democratic in my opinion, and also financial suicide. But all that aside, looking at what we're dealing with here today, I think I actually agree with the Conservative leader there. Having two Lib Dems on an almost entirely Lib Dem committee, council, consultation, whatever, basically does not represent Brentwood. Okay, they have 16 seats. Okay, that is not representative of all of Brentwood and all our councillors. So there should be other people on there. I'd quite like a Reform UK representative, but certainly not just two Lib Dem representatives. But lastly, the fundamental thing and reason why I personally would vote against this is because LGR is wrong, financially impossible to deliver, and also undemocratic in my opinion. And on that basis, complying with our demise is something I can never be involved with, and that's why I'll be voting against it today. Thank you very much.
Councillor Barber.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I have two questions, if I may, to the Chief Executive through you, if I may. The first one is it a statutory duty for us to appoint two individuals and two substitutes to these positions on this joint committee? That's question number one. And the second question is, does the government require political balance of the two appointments? Because I think it would be quite useful to know that in terms of making up your mind how you're going to vote, because I would like it placed on record in the minutes that I oppose LGR. However, if it is a statutory duty, and if there is no legal obligation on the administration to have political balance on the two appointments, then I will vote in favour of the recommendation, despite the fact I oppose LGR with all my being. Thank you.
Mr Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Barber. So, obviously, there's a journey on LGR, and at the moment, we've got a minded to decision by the Secretary of State, and that will hopefully, or hopefully, they'll go through to a process where it goes to Parliament, and obviously being secured as a structural change order. In the structural change order, and what's gone before us, and the one we've received as a draft, the Council are asked to have two nominations on that joint committee, and it's for the Council to decide that. In the absence of the Council, it'd be for the government or the senior responsible officer which is at the moment the county council to do that. So if we didn't put numbers forward, it could be decided for us. So we do need to nominate. In the report, it talks about the 14 days. When the structural change order is in place, we have to stand up that joint committee within 14 days, hence why we're looking to do this quite ahead of time to make sure the council are prepared and got representation for that. On political balance, it's been silent on political balance within the structural change order. So some areas might have decided to do that in the past, but that's not something that's currently in the structural change order or as expected. Obviously, some areas have done that to create balance across that. With the 12 members of the committee, there probably will be balance, but there isn't anything that says that each council needs to have political balance.
So, I'll ask this.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, only a point of clarification, just trying to clarify that really follows up on what Ms Stevenson just said. There are, I understand, 6 representatives or 6 members from Essex County Council that are going to be on this joint committee. Are they going to be cross-party, those 6 members, or are they all going to be decided by that administration? Do we know? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kendall. So, again, it's down to County Council to decide on that. If they decide to look at political balance, they can do, but if the County Council decide on those 6 members and who represents that. I think preference is to look at those members being part of the Mid-Essex Council area, but again, I don't think actually stipulates that you have to be in the Mid-Essex area for Essex County Council as well.
Councillor Baldock. Councillor Baldock.
This side stays on. I just wanted to know, being as there seems to be an opinion in the room that it's within the power of this room to change government policy on LGR, is there any other policies we might be able to change as well, such as defence spending, who knows, benefit spending, and any of those other major policies that the government has decided that we could perhaps change as well?
Perhaps we can solve the Ukraine-Russia conflict, seeing as we have the
Councillor
Ukrainian
Bash,
flag
sorry, you've
outside.
already spoken. Councillor Hurst.
Thank you. Just a brief point of order. I don't think I actually had a response from the leader on my appeal to his better nature.
Councillor Quirk, you've already spoken, so it's not possible to do that again. Councillor Parker.
I don't remember the bus I was chasing that the leader mentioned, and if it was for LGR, if I was on that bus, I'd have probably left without paying my fare. But as far as I'm concerned, there is nothing democratic in this change of local government. It's meant to curb whatever power there is in the lower areas of Britain. If you go from Suffolk down to Essex, down to Kent. My problem is that though I accept probably 50% of the people I speak to, namely residents and so forth, probably don't even understand what's happening, and I accept that, but the other 50% don't want it. I'm there to represent my residents, and I must admit that there is, I accept the leader's view that we have to look towards making the best of what we can get out of this, but I also have to say that whatever I can do to stop it or hinder it until the government changes, if I have that in my power, I will do it, because what we're doing is we're taking away Brentwood's centre, really, when you look at the number of representatives that Brentwood will have in terms of councillors. It's just whistled away to nothing. It's virtually the same as well, it's not exactly the same, but we have 4 councillors, Brentwood, representing Essex. The representation for Brentwood is going to be so small against Chelmsford and Malden. We are just taking away the authority we have and we're giving it to a unitary body which, in my opinion, will just decimate the authority we have in Brentwood to give the best to our residents. So there is no way that I can stand or sit in this chamber and vote on anything that pushes this forward. As far as I'm concerned, anything that I can do to push it backwards, I'm prepared to do. And I hope my fellow members follow that route as well.
Right. Councillor Wadsworth, you reserved your right to speak. If you'd like to sum up, please.
Yes, I would like to make a few comments. I think it's very important that we understand what this is about and what it's not about. We've heard a lot of very grand speeches against the principle of local government reorganisation. This isn't about whether LGR happens or doesn't happen. This is accepting that, and I know people may be more optimistic about it happening or more optimistic about it not happening, but this is acknowledging that this is the direction of travel. We are on this journey and we want to engage with this journey. If we're going to get the best deal for Brentwood and its residents out of the new unitary authority, let's assume it's going to happen because that is the most likely destination on this journey, then we have to be at the table. That's what this is about. You can have the debate about whether you support LGR or whether you don't, whether you want it in a different form elsewhere at another time. That's not what this is about. This is about being at the table. And this is about making sure we hit the ground running because this is coming at us. And if we're not there and we're not ready and we're not already talking about the issues. And Councillor Minot mentioned how great it was at the meeting at the Highlands to see all the 3 local authorities and all parties represented there. That was, you know, that's the sort of engagement we need, and we need to build on that. And this is what I do. There are already 3 parties represented in the 4 people that we're nominating to engage with this. I personally, whoever, you know, obviously I'm one of the people, the council's entrusted Councillor Aspinall and myself as leader and deputy leader, and I think it's right that we lead for this authority in this particular forum. I know Councillor Aspinall well, and I know his commitment to transparency. I share that. We will report back regularly, efficiently and completely, and we will engage all members of this council in the key decisions that will need to be made as this process moves on. Yes, there will be fewer councillors. One of the reasons why we've moved on with the community governance review is because we recognise there's a potential democratic deficit in the borough by not having parish councils in the urban areas, because we do think that some decisions will need to be made, should be made closer to people, closer to the grassroots. And that's what the community governance review is about. That is going to help us bridge that gap. And that is equally important. We hope that that is something that will be supported by everybody as well.
Thank you. Councillor Aspinall, would you sum up, please? You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope I won't take 5 minutes. Please interject if I do. Yeah, I get the essence of this. There's an awful lot of people over that side who don't want this to happen. Unfortunately, being an ostrich does not help. It's not going to stop this from happening. And please believe me. Now, Councillor Hurst would like me to invite people from the opposition over. So he would like me to invite the leader who has just demonstrated his total disdain and rubbishing my town. Do I want that type of person going and representing Brentwood? No, I do not. We've just listened to Councillor Parker, who has said that he will do everything he can to hinder this and push that back. Do I want him at the table? No, I don't. If you can guarantee me that Councillor Hurst would be one of the representatives, that might be considered, but it can't be. I cannot accept that at all. I want someone there who is going to defend our borough, push it forward. We're going to be talking about how we operate our country parks, how we collect and dispose of our waste. We're going to be talking about police, fire and crime. We're going to be talking about education. We're going to be talking about adult social care. We need to do this with our officers and with other members in a forum, in an atmosphere where we can discuss it sensibly without all this nitpicking and biting and fighting against. It's totally irresponsible to go into a forum with people of that mindset, and I'm not going to have it. So sorry, the recommendation stays.
Right, so we will now vote on the recommendations on page 4 of the agenda supplement. 4. Against? Abstain? The motion is carried. Item 13, withdrawal from the South Essex Council Joint Committee. The report begins on page 21 of the agenda supplement. Mr. Stevenson, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got nothing further to add, but happy to take any questions if required.
Councillor Aspinall, will you move the recommendations, please? You have
Well, Madam Mayor, we haven't had a meeting for possibly 2 years. The council has declined. It's no longer in operation, and we're going to get some money back. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, and reserve my right to speak, Madam Mayor.
So I'll open the debate. 3 minutes to speak per person if anybody has any questions. Councillor Gascoigne.
Just a very quick one. Like I say, I highlighted it before, the clash between the previous report and what's happening now. In principle, I could see myself being up for this, especially given the fact that there's £100,000-ish saving to be made. I think that's a real win. But it really would be helpful, just for clarification on our side, why is there that mismatch? And then elaborate perhaps a little bit more on the full benefits of this. If it was something we're trying to be involved with and contribute to, but then now we want to withdraw from it, I just would like to understand that journey. And that's not coming as a hostile, clever political trick. It was just clarification. Thank you.
Councillor. Sorry.
Thank you. I take the piece out of Councillor Gascoigne. So, South Essex Committee was formerly the Association of South Essex Local Authorities, a SALOR. It was set up circa 6-7 years ago. I believe might be slightly older. Its purpose at that point was to look for the previous government's devolution style deal to whether there was a potential for a mayoralty and coordination across the South Essex block and what could happen with that. Obviously, local government reform changed that, and in turn, this is partly why it hasn't met, because there was no proposal for that kind of bulk. It's actually quite a weird shape. I think Epping are in it as well. Might be wrong. But it's effectively, it was formed as for a previous model of devolution and local government reform. It hasn't met. It doesn't have there's no model it tallies up with. And frankly, if it were to carry on operate, it can only cost us money for limited benefit. Well, at the moment, there's cash in the account, so it makes sense to take that money back and utilise it as much as we can. I think a SALOR at points has had moments of looking like it could be fantastic, and every time it's got there, either the government's changed, the Prime Minister's changed, or something similar in terms of a funding stream that hasn't been available, so it's never actually achieved its objective either. So I think this is just an opportunity to refund. It was a nice and sensible thing to try, but it hasn't succeeded, and now is the time to withdraw from it while there's money available, and it's money that will be available to Brentwood, rather than letting it be abolished post an LGR period, when that will be someone else who will have that cash, and we'd like to spend it now, arguably. Thank you. Hope that's helpful.
Councillor Walswood, you reserved your right to speak. Would you like to sum up?
I'm happy to move to the vote.
So, Councillor Aspinall, would you like to sum up?
Well, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So we will now vote on the recommendations on page 21 of the agenda supplement. For? Against? Abstain? The motion is carried. Right, we move to item 14, notice of motion. The report begins on page 85 of the agenda. One notice of motion has been submitted in accordance with Rule 3 in Part 4.1 of the Constitution. Council procedure rules and are listed in order of the date received. As the mover, Councillor Godfrey, could you introduce your notice of motion, please? You have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Having not done this before, please indulge me. Do I need to read out the notice of motion? I do. Would you like me to? The Council notes the Government's proposals for local government reorganisation in Essex and the decision of Essex County Council to challenge those proposals through judicial review. This Council affirms, number one, that proposals involving the abolition and restructuring of long-established local authorities with profound implications for democratic accountability and the delivery of public services should be subject to independent judicial scrutiny and therefore supports Essex County Council's decision to challenge the Government's local government reorganisation process through judicial review. The Council affirms that the right of public authorities to seek independent judicial oversight is a fundamental constitutional safeguard and should not be characterised as opposition to reform, but as a legitimate means of ensuring that government acts lawfully and fairly. Number three, that no government should expect local authorities simply to acquiesce to proposals that may have profound and irreversible consequences without challenge or scrutiny. This Council resolves to support Essex County Council's judicial review challenge to the Government's local government reorganisation proposals. This Council resolves to affirm the principle that major constitutional changes affecting local government should be based upon transparency, due process and meaningful local consent. And this Council resolves to request that the leader of Brentwood Borough Council write to the leader of Essex County Council and to the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, expressing this Council's support for Essex County Council's judicial review challenge.
Do you have anything else to add?
I'll give way to, I know there is an amendment to the motion that Councillor Russell would like to add.
So, right, we need to have the seconder first, please. So, Councillor Nicholson.
I'm happy to second and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I do have a motion here, an amendment to the motion. I've got some copies here if you... and I'll read it out for you. It's actually swapping the order of 1 and 2. This Council resolves to affirm the principle that major constitutional changes affecting local government should be based upon transparency, due process and meaningful local consent. In addition, to note the process of arriving at this proposed form of LGR has not met this principle. Would you like a copy, Madam Mayor? Are you got? 2, to support Essex County Council's judicial review challenge to the Government's local government reorganisation proposals, recognising that judicial review is the proper constitutional mechanism for determining whether such proposals have been developed and progressed lawfully. And 3, that following the adoption of resolutions 1 and 2, the leader of Brentwood Borough Council be requested to write to the leader of Essex County Council and the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, notifying them of this Council's resolution and expressing its support for Essex County Council's decision to seek judicial review of the government's local government reorganisation proposals.
The second, Councillor Ross.
I would like to second that amendment. Thank you.
Right, so Councillor Godfrey and Nicholson, do you, is the amendment acceptable to you?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to accept the amendment.
I can now open the debate.
Is this when I get my 5 minutes, Madam Mayor?
No, open the debate.
Not yet.
I haven't had my 5 minutes then. Did I miss it? As I was asking for instruction, but thank you.
At the end, yeah.
Mayor, I will happily waive my right and give way to Councillor Godfrey. I believe that will be down to your discretion.
I agree. It's very, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell, and please indulge me in my naivety of being in this chamber. This isn't something that should be party political. I've heard from the other side of the council that they want to be non-party political on issues such as this. This shouldn't be party political. This is about the rule of law, which is what I believed I was here and what I was voted in for partly to represent. Essex County Council are at the vanguard of this. Others will follow. There are more issues to come from this, and we should be seen to support the rule of law. Now, Councillor Gareth Barrett said this evening that there has been some regrettable phrases, and I'm not sure when Councillor Minot referred to the Essex County Council were not long for this earth. I'm not sure what the implied inference was from that. And I've also had Facebook posts shown to me that say that Essex County Council is failing. I'm not sure how we can fail within 2 months of taking administration when our roads are better, our libraries are better, and we are promoting patriotism. But what I don't want to do is to fail our residents on LGR. This isn't about LGR, it is about the process for LGR, but we do need to consider what LGR, the implications of it. And adult social care was mentioned by the Leader of the Council. If we end up with 15 unitary authorities across the 4 proposed councils at the moment, that will become possibly 50 to 60 unitaries across the country. All of those unitaries have a statutory obligation. They all need a director of adult social care. They all need a principal social worker. That isn't a nicety, that is a legal requirement. Essex County Council is in the top 20% of local authorities in the country for adult social care. We have an excellent team providing all of those services, looking after the most vulnerable in our society. We need to find another 50 people that can do that, that are at the top of their game and that have that level of experience. We need to find another 50 directors of adult social services. We need to find another 50 principal social workers. That's a legal requirement. We also need to find another 50 safeguarding experts, another 50 commissioning experts. Those people do not exist. If we move into a 5 unitary authority within Essex, on day 1, it is predicted that 2 out of those 5 unitaries will be in special measures. Tax receipts will not be able to match care demand, and we will be failing the most vulnerable in our society. Let's move on to cost. The predicted cost from Essex County Council is more than £100 million, with more than a 50-year payback. I'm not sure how that represents value for money to the taxpayer. I've always believed that when you look at any argument, benefit should be measured against cost. In this argument, where the cost is the lives and the welfare of thousands, if not tens of thousands of vulnerable adults across all of the unitary authorities, I'm not sure what benefit outweighs that. So this is about judicial review. Judicial review is a legitimate constitutional safeguard. I, for one, do not want to be part of an administration that sets a precedent for not challenging government. Councillor Baldock mentioned that we can't change what government does. We can't change what government does. Yes, we can. We have to ask the questions. We have to ask the difficult questions. So this motion is not about supporting Reform UK. I know that most of you are genetically opposed to that. It is not about asking us to oppose the government. It is about asking us to affirm that we still believe in the rule of law. And I would ask every member to support this, regardless of party, because without rule of law, we have nothing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Worsfold?
Yeah, that was it was a very interesting speech, and it was very impassioned. And if you're engaging in a debate about the principles of local government reorganisation, there were some very cogent arguments and around which you could have a debate. That's not what I see in this motion. The motion is about the process of how we've got to where we are. And I didn't hear any argument that gives me any reason to support a judicial review of the process. The speech was about the overall policy and the principle, not the process. The judicial review is going to happen anyway, and if there is a flaw in the process, it'll be exposed. So I haven't heard anything that encourages me to support this motion. I do worry about some parts of this. What does support mean? Judicial reviews can be and are very expensive. We've heard concerns about the cost of LGR. There's a big cost attached to a judicial review. Does support potentially commit this council to paying money for a judicial review that frankly, most of us who've been briefed on this just don't believe it's got much chance of success? Are we going to be landed with a very large bill? I'm not prepared to commit this council to anything that might have a cost attached to it that isn't clearly spelt out and capped so that we absolutely understand. But I come back to the point I made at the beginning. The motion talks about process. The amendment talks about process. I haven't heard any arguments that tell me why the process has been flawed. I may disagree with the decision. Look, LGR, let's get so laying that aside, let's talk about where LGRs come from. LGR started under the last Conservative government. We've ended up with what looks to me like a sort of badly laid, crazy paving of local authority structures across this country. We've got it in Essex. We've got 2 unitaries, and then the rest of us are in the 2-tier authorities. You look to the West Country, Cornwall is a single county unitary. Yeah, we haven't got any consistency. We've got a complete patchwork. And it seems to me that what this government is doing is seeing through what the last government started. So there's a long-running mandate for this. You can argue
30 seconds.
Principle, whether you agree with that. I do actually think we've got to do something to sort out that crazy paving of local government structure, and we've got to accept that that's going to mean some difficult decisions. But we can't sign a blank cheque, and we can't support something that actually doesn't tell us what we're challenging.
Councillor Quirk.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I've not got anything to add, really, insofar as what Councillor Godfrey said, where the merits or otherwise of LGR are concerned. I think that's been well rehearsed. But let me just kind of try and help Councillor Worsfold insofar as what this motion intends to do, which is effectively to allow this council
to align with Essex County Council, just put politics aside for 1 second, to do the right thing for the residents of Essex and, in this instance, the residents of Brentwood. So let me just expand as to why I think this side of the chamber, regardless of politics, regardless of the fact this is an opposition motion and their natural default position is to say no, let me just set out a couple of reasons that might be somewhat persuasive. One of them is that there's no mandate whatsoever for local government reorganisation. It was never mentioned in the general election. Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves and co did not set this out as a mission, as a mandate, as a thing that they were hanging their political hats on. No one has ever voted for LGR. LGR and devolution, by the way, are two very different things. Devolution is about mayors. LGR is about carving up Essex into very inefficient and unwieldy unitaries. So if the Liberal Democrats, the clue is in the name, Democrats really are democratic, and on the basis that this has never been tested to the Essex public, forget the costs for a second, forget the resource issues that Councillor Godfrey has set out, but this has never been tested by way of the Essex public, except in one place and at one time, which was May the 7th this year, when Reform across Essex and across the country were elected and won the local elections, and what was one of our issues, one of our policies, was to oppose LGR. So whilst there hasn't been a national referendum on this or a general election issue on this, I think it's fair to say that you can accept that the people of Britain, but particularly the people of Essex, have voted against LGR, and therefore the Liberal Democrats, if you could back Councillor Aspinall, would you mind just listening for a second rather than talking about what was on the telly last night, whatever you're doing? This is important stuff. So mandate is the first thing. The second thing, to specifically answer Councillor Worsford's question with regard to process, the very nature of the judicial review is not about the basis of LGR. It is not about LGR and whether it's right or wrong, good or bad. It is about the process that Steve Reed MP, as the Secretary of State for Ministries, Housing and Local Government, has gone through. The NHS and many, many other organisations within Essex have said that the five unitary process, that outcome does not work. Steve Reed took advice from his ministers that was against 5. They favoured 3. They said that 3 was workable, 5 was inefficient and does not work on a number of levels. Steve Reed ignored due process, ignored that advice and went for it anyway on the basis of politics, on the basis of ensuring... I've given you reasons, Liberal Democrat, Labour,
Councillor Quirk, your time is up. Thank you.
To vote for this motion, and I hope you do that.
Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As was the custom when Councillor Chinnery first spoke in this chamber, and indeed former Councillor Gibson spoke in this chamber, I would just like to congratulate my ward colleague on his address to the council. I may not necessarily agree with the arguments put forward, but he spoke well, and it's always been my convention to congratulate my fellow ward councillors when they speak to the chamber on a substantive motion for the first time. Thank you.
Councillor Gorton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, on the point that Councillor Baldock raised, I'll use his right name. LGR is happening whether we like it or not. It's a government decision. We are a borough council. To go on from that, Councillor Worsfold mentioned the crazy paving of local government. That's what we have at the moment. Councillor Quirk reckons that the unitary system will make it less efficient. I beg to differ. We have a very inefficient system of local government at the moment. Our residents do not know which council is responsible for what services. You ask the average resident who's responsible for highways, who's responsible for refuse collection. They probably don't know. Dealing with highways, at the moment, all we can do, if a resident reports a pothole, is to put it into the Essex system and it disappears. And we may hear something about it weeks later, and the response is likely to be, we don't think it's important enough, we don't think it's bad enough to repair at the moment. Similarly, Councillor Worsfold mentioned CGR and devolution. So we have the opportunity to bring in more parish councils, town councils, into Brentwood. I don't want us to be in the situation where a parish council, in order to put up a speed indicating device,
30 seconds, Councillor.
has to get the support of their county member before they can even apply for a licence for it. That's just wrong. Let's put all services under the same council. Thank you.
Councillor Hurst.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I guess that Councillor Gorton may wish to intervene here, but I'm just surprised to hear him say that parish councils should be abolished, which is what I just understood him to say. One level of council for the whole thing. I'm assuming that you didn't actually mean that, but it is what you just said.
There should be more. Can if Councillor Hurst thinks I said parish councils should be abolished, that is totally wrong, and may I correct him on that. I am all in favour of more parish councils in the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Gorton, for that clarification, because to say we only need one level of council all told, and it's wrong to have parish councils, I completely object to that. My point with this motion really is that it's all about localism, isn't it? And we really need to make sure that the voice of the people is properly heard. We've heard said that we're going to get local government reorganisation whether we like it or not. I would just reflect back on when it was put forward in a more robust form than ultimately was the case under the Conservative government, where sufficient councillors walked through the office of the then Minister for Local Government to mean that the policy actually got changed. We can do the same again here, and that's what really this motion is all about. What we have not done so far is hear the voice of the public of this borough on this issue. And I think it's really important that we do. The Conservative policy was only to do local government organisation with local support. We are not doing it with local support. We are doing it from a top-down cookie-cutter approach. What we're hearing is that actually uniformity is better. And I would contend that is completely wrong. Uniformity may be cheaper, but it is not going to mean a better service to our public. I love devolution. I really think it's important that we get more powers devolved down from central government, more decisions taken nearer the people, with more localism, with more voice from the public, whose lives we are making a difference to. But actually, the proposal which is in front of us in terms of unitisation doesn't fit that. When it was done, and I do remember the 1970s, when it was done in the 1970s, it was very clear that unitary councils were a good fit for dense urban areas, but we're going to leave rural areas, bigger counties like ours, without proper representation. That's why you have the diversity, which is a good thing, and I know that many people on the opposite side of the chamber agree that it's a good thing, the diversity of representation that we have in this mighty county, this great county, where the cities, the city of Southend and the densely populated area of Thurrock both have unitaries, but the rest of us have our representation through better structures which are nearer to the people. I'm really keen to support this because I think if we do it properly, we can actually see off this flawed proposal. And can I just say as well, there's the same sort of proposal being made around policing at the moment, that we should go regional there. I have a survey out. Please go on my website. If you have a view, please give us it, because it's really important that we know what the people think about the plans that this government has to centralise, make uniform, and indeed take away from the people's views and impose from above. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll restate a couple of basic principles. Firstly, I do not believe that local government reform within Essex has any democratic mandate. We sent out surveys to Brentwood residents during 2026. Around 2,000 people replied. Do you know what percentage supported the straightforward question, do you support unitary councils? 8.1% said yes. Over half said no, and the rest said they didn't know. So there is no mandate for change. The choice of 5 unitary councils came with conflicting reports from different consultancies. It's hard to resist the conclusion that the recommendations were based on the political expected outcomes for the composition of those 5 councils. And that goes across political parties, but that's the wrong way to decide the structure and the size of a unitary council. Councillor Worsfold, I think, is incorrect when he stated that the current Labour government just continued the policy of the Conservatives. No, in 16th of December 2024, they laid forward their English devolution white paper, which basically said they would replace all councils, all 2-tier councils, with a single unitary. That was never the policy of the former Conservative government, where it was done with consent, where councils who wanted to do it could pursue it. So, no democratic mandate, political choice of the structure for unitary councils, no real answers to the question of how you will fund adult social care going forward, and education and services which are better run at the county level. The district-county model, I would say, is not broken. It could have been improved. You could have delegated roles and responsibilities from county down to districts to encourage more participation by district councillors. It will move to a council which is remote. If you live in West Horndon and you think that Brentwood Borough Council is remote now, my goodness, when it becomes the Mid-Essex Council, you're going to feel it's miles away with that journey to Chelmsford, where no doubt it's going to be set up to be centred around the centre of the physical area. So, and then we had the question raised by Councillor Worsfold, I think the complete red herring, about the cost of supporting this in principle by voting for a motion tonight. There was no detailed cost on the climate emergency motion when this council adopted it. No, this is what we're incurring if we sign up and we vote for this today. It was flag waving for the Green Party from the other side. And frankly, to be honest with you, cost wasn't factored in. The consequences on other services never considered. So don't be distracted by that. If you vote for this motion tonight, you stand a possibility of pushing back against losing Brentwood and Essex, which you might think they've got problems, but what the alternative of what you might get is a very remote council with councillors who have a huge area to cover and worse services and more cost.
Thank you. Councillor Aspinall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, where do you start? This myth that Essex County Council is the only ones who can drive and operate and run on behalf of our residents a good adult social care system is nonsense. You don't need to be big to run an adult social care well and efficiently. Southend have been doing it since 1998. So have, sorry? They have been running a very good. And that's one of the reasons why we went down the road of 5 unitaries, because we could prove that those services were run, that the services that the county council run were run by small areas. So all over the country, not just in Essex. So that's a total myth, and one we knocked down before. to say that no one knows about this is absolute nonsense. It's been publicised, it's been on your Facebook accounts, it's been on your Twitter accounts, it's been on everywhere where you've been campaigning, we've been campaigning, people know about it. You've just said that you've had a remarkable return from people. So people do understand, they had knowledge of this. And like Councillor Worsfold, I am not prepared to run the risk of running a debt for Brentwood that we do not know. We don't know the legal implications of this. I'd like to understand from a legal front point where that is, what we are being asked to promote and to support. No, I can't do that, Madam Mayor. Not in all honesty, on behalf of the residents of Brentwood, it's like a blank cheque. No, thank you. I move the vote, Madam Mayor.
I'll second that.
Sorry?
Request a recorded vote, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Please can members state for, against, abstain when I call your name. Councillor Nikki Cuthbert.
Against.
Councillor Rigby.
Against.
Councillor Aaron. For. Councillor Aspinall.
Against.
Councillor Baksh.
For.
Councillor Baldock.
Against.
Councillor Barber.
For.
Councillor Gareth Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Dr Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Clark. Councillor Martin Cuthbert.
Against.
Councillor Davis. Councillor Fulcher. Councillor Gascoigne.
For.
Councillor Gelderbloom. Councillor Godfrey.
For.
Councillor Gorton.
Against.
Councillor Gregory. Councillor Haig. Councillor Hurst.
For.
Councillor Kendall.
Against.
Councillor LaPlane.
Against.
Councillor McShane.
For.
Councillor Munden.
Against.
Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minot.
Against.
Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Pound. Councillor Quirk.
For.
Councillor Russell.
For.
Councillor Thompson.
For.
Councillor Wagland. Councillor Worsford.
Against.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's 18 for, 16 against. Sorry. That's 18 against and 16 for. Yes, that's lost. Sorry.
And I'll close this meeting to the press.